Hello ladies and gentlemen, TX141 here, also known as Paul, bringing you another Ace in the Day gameplay for the arcade mode of War Thunder. In today's instalment, we'll be reviewing the MC200 Serie 3, an Italian monoplane. To give you a small historical overview on the MC200 and this iteration of the plane, the Macchi C200 Saetta, or Lightning, was the response of Aeronautica Macchi to the February 1936 requirement outlined by Regia Aeronautica, the Italian Air Force. In this outline, the aircraft that was under specification was to field the following: a single radio engine, which allowed the plane to possess a top speed of 500 km an hour in level flight. Additionally, it had to have a flight endurance time of 2 hours between takeoff and landing, and be equipped with two 12.7mm machine guns. The response of Aeronautica Macchi was quite an interesting one, simply because it deviated from the already in service Fiat CR42 biplane, which was perhaps one of the best biplanes in service leading up to the Second World War. The MC200 was an all-metallic design, indeed a monoplane, possessing a Fiat A74 engine providing it with 870 horsepower. Moreover, the twin 12.7mm were added as specified, and the plane was introduced to service by August of 1939. Upon introduction, a number of Italian pilots complained that the plane did not match up to their existing experiences with the Fiat CR42. And so, while the plane was gradually improved, additionally, a number of retro modifications were also included, such as the cockpit going from the original closed design, which was a modern design, to an open design to reflect the experience of the CR42 pilot. However, while upgrades were being added, the MC200 was to go up against quite a number of contemporaries, including the Hawker Hurricane. Contemporaries which the MC200 was able to equal, if not surpass, in some aspects, especially at the start of the Second World War. Seeing service on a number of fronts, including Malta, North Africa and the Eastern Front, the MC200 started off in a good position at 1939. However, as the war developed, the MC200's lack of upgrades and lack of production numbers caused the plane to fall behind with its upgraded contemporaries, including the Supermarine Spitfire. And as a result, while the MC200 went through a number of Serie modifications, including the Serie 3 here, which I believe may be the first to include the open cockpit, although don't quote me on that because I haven't been able to find out much about the Serie 3 modification, the MC200 was relegated and put on the back foot, with the design trying to be improved with an MC201, although this was dropped in favour of the MC202 Folgore, which was to field the Daimler-Benz 601 engine as issued in the Messerschmitt 109. So, with our historical overview out of the way, how does the MC200 Serie 3 perform in game? Well, as I make this head-on pass at a Heinkel 111H3, we're going to see that the armament of two 12.7mm machine guns is about as effective as you'd think up against a bomber, even if it is a medium bomber such as a Heinkel 111. Indeed, we have to get in very close and aim specifically for the engines, critically damaging the left-hand engine and destroying the right-hand engine, setting it on fire. We took a small amount of damage, however our metallic frame means that we're able to take small arms fire quite effectively, with the 7.7mm machine gun on the rear of that Heinkel only doing marginal damage to our right wing, for a lack of compromising performance. The two machine guns you have, the two 12.7mm Breda Safat machine guns, are quite potent at close range. However, at long range they seem to really lack the punch that, say, the 12.7s in an F2A Brewster Buffalo might have, or indeed in a KI-43, two planes that are your contemporary in game. As we descend from a higher altitude, we try to pick out some targets from a furball, our target this time being a Lag 3. Waiting until close range to fire, we achieve a very nice critical hit, damaging their tail control to the point where they're going to eventually crash into the ground, securing us our second kill. The gameplay you see here is one taken from the airfield domination map on Sicily. The setup I'm using is a 30-minute fuel load, 300 meter gun convergence, that was a mistake on my part, and tracer ammunition for the machine guns. The reason I field tracer ammunition is because I intend to try and set my targets on fire, and I believe the tracer belt features APT rounds, armor piercing tracer, or APIT rounds, armor piercing incendiary tracer. I believe it's the latter, which have a slightly higher chance of setting targets on fire by comparison with the air target ammunition. However, on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to be setting too many opponents on fire, but you are going to have to put quite a bit of ammunition into your opponents if you're opening fire at longer ranges. Ergo, I try to engage at less than 500 metres, more preferably at say 300 to 250 metres with my machine guns in order to perform the most effective amount of damage in a small convergence window. With the armament and the setup out of the way, we now go on to how well does the MC200 perform in terms of a manoeuvrable fighter. Well, what we've seen so far is that nobody was able to match us up to higher altitude, perhaps because enemy players did not choose. And having fielded this plane against a number of contemporaries and higher battle rating planes such as the MC202, you are not the best climber for your rank or battle rating. Speaking of climber, a MiG-3 comes up towards us, but we managed to snap roll out of the way of the gunfire, and we're going to use our energy advantage and indeed our altitude advantage to swing back around and hit them accordingly. As we can see, as we open fire we do a significant amount of damage, achieving a critical hit. However, it's just not enough to perhaps put the MiG-3 completely out of the game, and that's where the machine guns are lacking in their firepower as stated earlier. So going back to the manoeuvrability, we're able to climb with most of our opponents, although you will face planes such as the MC202 and even sometimes perhaps the early Spitfires, which will outclimb you, if not match you, up to an altitude of about 4,000 metres. While your Fiat engine is powerful, do not let that give you a false sense of confidence that you'll be able to outclimb anyone. Because I was quite lucky in this game not to have opponents who would climb up to higher altitudes than myself. Descending down for another boom and zoom run, I go to pick on this Gladiator Mark II, waiting for an opportune shot, and achieving a nice critical before detonating the enemy plane. I then put a number of hits in on an I-16 Ishak, and I was going to turn on that Havoc Mark I, although I decided against it simply because a number of my teammates were there, and I'd rather not get shot in the middle of a furball, either by a friendly or an enemy tailor. As we've seen during our dives, we're able to maintain great manoeuvrability even at speeds of 500 km/h or more. Indeed, this plane maintains manoeuvrability all the way up to about 600 km/h, at which point the roll rate seems to hamper just slightly, although nothing too major to be worried about, especially seeing as most of the dives you're going to perform will not be over 700 km/h in speed. Indeed, you're quite restricted in the top speed you can achieve due to the power of your engine. Over the course of this game, of course, because it is airfield domination, I tend to avoid going in for furballs and pleasantries of turn fighting. However, as we descend to try and take out this lag-free which is going for the capture on airfield A, I'm now going to discuss how well the MC200 matches up in a turn fight. You are not the best turner, and I will say that from the start. What makes this plane quite good at turn fighting, however, is the fact that you're pretty middle of the range. You can outturn and outmaneuver planes such as lag-free 8. As you can see here, we're able to keep nicely behind them even when they're at low speed, by breaking up and forcing the rudder to kick us round. While you may not be able to outturn everyone, indeed you can outturn lag-frees, yaks to a degree, although once you're at lower speed the yak can match you turn for turn, I've found. And indeed you can outturn the Hurricane Mark II but not the Mark I. This plane relies on the pilot knowing how to use the rudder in combination with just the standard roll rate and turning and pulling up on the stick. The reason being is because the rudder is quite powerful on this plane, and because you've got an above average roll rate, you're able to change your direction just as quickly as say a lag-free can. Although to be fair, the lag-free does have a slightly higher roll rate than you. Ergo, while you may not be able to outturn everyone, you can change your direction perhaps a little faster than say a Spitfire Mark I. And what this means is you'll be able to keep in the fight for a little bit longer, because even when you're starting to run out of energy, your change in direction might buy you a little bit more time in order to force your opponent to run out of their energy faster, and therefore allow you to come round on them and secure the kill. I hope that's made sense. So, following that, what else do we come on to? Well, it's time to discuss where this plane seems to perform best. Having achieved 4 kills, they've all been very energetic kills, where I've always made the kill usually, or started my attack, at a speed of 400 km/h or more. I will be honest, if you're going to dogfight in this plane, starting off at a speed of about 400 km/h is ideal. Your manoeuvrability seems to exist within the range of 350 km/h to 450, with a preference being dead set in the middle. If you let your speed drop too far, or if you let it drop below a speed of 300 km/h, it's not the manoeuvrability of the plane that falls to pieces per se. As we achieve our 5th and final kill on an I-15, we went for the land. It's not that your manoeuvrability drops off per se. What actually seems to happen is the engine just goes dry. And what I mean by that is you are no longer able to accelerate, and this is the major flaw of the MC200 Serie 3. If you drop to or lower speed, you're going to find it very difficult to accelerate back up to an acceptable speed of 300 km/h or more. And so trying to stay away from dropping below 250 km/h especially is crucial. And speaking of crucial manoeuvres, a lag-free 11 comes at us directly, and indeed does this A5M4, and we're able to outmanoeuvre them both as the game comes to its close. And as you're going to see, just as the game finishes, I line up my kill shot on the lag-free 11, taking out their pilot for kill number 6, although we cannot credit that because that was outside of the game time. And with that being said, let's take a look at some stats. So, in review we achieved an ace, i.e. 5 kills, and 1 assist. This earns us 11,227 silver lions, and in addition to that, 1,135 research points. A nice haul with 227 of those going towards our research on the ME163B Comet. In review, the MC200 Serie 3 is quite an enjoyable aircraft, although perhaps daunting at first until you get it upgraded. The plane climbs well, but cannot outclimb everyone, and this can lead you into a false sense of security from the outset, and additionally you can't outturn everyone. So you're restricted to a jack of all trades ground, where you're going to have to know what you're going up against in order to get the most out of your plane. However, while the armament lacks a punch, if you can get in close enough you can make very quick work of your lightly armoured targets, such as we saw in this game. Additionally, you've got an above average roll rate. You've got decent acceleration, although do not let the plane fall below 300 km/h because the acceleration on the engine is just not enough to get you back up to the speed range for your manoeuvrability. And so really, that's where this plane plays well. You can keep it quite quick, and additionally, make sure that you're always able to get in and out of the fight when necessary, having engaged and known your opponent's strengths and weaknesses. You may indeed just get an ace with this plane. And as we review how we performed in comparison with our teammates, we see that we came 4th, achieving a rather nice game for one of the first Italian monoplane aircraft. So I've been TX141, and if you've enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder videos on my channel. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies!